Earlier on, I had introduced the ladies that we have on board, but I'll still do the same this morning as we appreciate them and we say asante sana for the great things that they are doing towards, getting the women up there. And so we have Dorothy Okemo, who's Executive Officer, Access to Medicine Platform, and Betty Adera, a household name, founder, Betty Adera Foundation, and also Miss President, Nairobi County. Good to have you, ladies. Good morning.
Morning, Linda.
How have you been, Betty? It's quite a while. But was that Betty or Dorothy?
Yes, I was saying more and happy International Women's Day to you and all the women and men out there.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. Betty is a bit low. Kindly, if we can fix that. Dorothy, how are you? I think we've had a session once and then you disappeared.
I'm back now. Thanks for having me on the show.
Good to have you.
Here on this day.
Mm-hmm. And we have a man here. I'd want to say that, there's so much that we can talk about the women, but you realize that we've been pushing so much on the aspect of inclusivity, equality, getting them to the top of the helm, in terms of leadership across. And the gentleman on board argued that, yes, we have made great strides, but we still have a long way to go in terms of just getting the women up there. What would you say we have done so far? What would you say would be the stumbling block to us achieving what it is that we seek? What would we say today that would be one thing that would help us root out affirmative action, which has been incorporated towards ensuring that at least we create that level playing ground? Dorothy.
Thank you, Linda. I think we have made quite a bit of strides in Kenya in terms of equality and equal opportunities for women. But personally, I think it's time we sort of changed tact and brought we brought men on board as champions so that the men are also championing for the rights of women, for equal opportunities for women. Because what we have been doing so far has been misunderstood, and many people think that when we advance the rights of girls and women, we are doing this to the exclusion and disadvantage of boys and men. And that really isn't the case. What we are trying to do is make sure that both genders are at par and they have equal opportunities and they can, all reach their potential. Mm-hmm. So I think it's high time we incorporated the boys and the men and we make them the champions to ensure that their sisters, their mothers, their aunties are able to get equal opportunities just like boys without feeling disenfranchised.
Mm-hmm. All right. I'm sure Betty will agree with you. But Betty, don't you think that we've seen men coming out, in terms of trying to push for this, empowering the girl child and all that, a conversation that, has helped us take a different trajectory in comparison to what has been there in existence? Would you argue that they are happy or it's a happy place for them to try out and push the women? Betty?
I'm having a little trouble hearing you, but taking it from where my fellow panelist has left it, yes, we need to have men and we need to have boys brought from the back of the room to the front of the room. Often a good number of the ills that affect women are actually as a result of something to do with a man. Mm-hmm. If you take, for instance, sexual and gender-based violence, we tend to talk to the girls and we're talking to the women and we're talking with ourselves, but we're not bringing enough the person who is actually doing this to us. And I know by my own experience, even at the Betty Adera Foundation, that when you engage boys and men the right way, when you bring them as co-creators, when you bring them as partners, better or stronger champion for women's rights than boys and men. And we even see this in the political leadership in Kenya, when narratives are put in such a way that it appears that men and women are fighting. It appears that it's a gender war, while it should not. It should be a gender integration conversation. So today, as we celebrate the International Women's Day, we need to think more about ways in which we can bring everybody on board, everybody around this table for the sake and for the good of the woman and for the good of the girl, not only in Kenya, but globally.
All right, we do not want to perpetuate this narrative, Dorothy. In my own opinion, I would probably argue that I have seen lots of men coming on board, pushing for this conversation of how we can end the cuts, pushing for this conversation of how we can stop, early childhood, early marriages and all that. And I mean, we've seen them, trying to get themselves into conversations where we get to have policies that favor the girl child. We get to find ways of getting the girl child to get access to medicine and all these crucial things that they may need, understanding how much they are vulnerable and the special needs that they have. But do you suppose there's indeed proper goodwill that comes from this other end that would confidently say that if we incorporate them, then we are certain to achieve something?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think you're really right. And in fact, the voices of the men that we hear are really men who are educated and empowered and in the urban areas. I think the biggest problem is that we have not done enough work in terms of sensitization, in terms of advocacy and education for the boys and men in the rural areas, because this is honestly the places where a lot of this kind of practices go on. For example, FGM, early childhood marriages, a lot of sexual and gender-based violence. So I think it is important for us, even as we sit in Nairobi, that we are able to pass this message down to the grassroots, to the lowest level, because we need the men who are really deeply rooted in tradition and autocracy to be able to also understand why it is important to protect their women and girls, why it's important to respect them, and why it's important to be at the forefront of making sure that they have this kind of equal opportunities. So I think that's what I said in the beginning, that we need to look at how we can change tact and really trickle this messaging, downwards in the communities, in the villages. So even as we do the work that we do in terms of access to medicines, in terms of advocacy, in terms of engaging with the counties, this needs to be part and parcel of that kind of work that we do. That is community engagement and education. I think that is the only way we'll start really seeing a change in terms of reducing these negative indicators that disenfranchise women and girls.
Betty, let's talk education and going with the theme that we have today, Women in Leadership 1, but importantly, achieving an equal future in a COVID-19 world. That acknowledgement that indeed we are in a COVID-19 world, and not just a COVID-19 world, but a world that is full of pandemics, that, a world that is full of challenges and difficulties. Just how then are we able to achieve equality? Or a future that is impressive and a future that is friendly for the girl child?
Thank you very much, Linda. Now, education as it is one of the greatest responses to all these prejudices that we see happen. It's so difficult to be a leader when you do not have sufficient education. And in the world, and also hit Kenya last year. Sector to be grossly impacted. Schools were just closed overnight. And all stayed at home. The teachers stayed at home. Parents had to deal with their kids and all that. And within just 2 to 3 months into the COVID-19 pandemic, we could hear everywhere the hue and cry of the proportion of girls who are being sexually violated, and women, the proportion of girls who got pregnant just within that particular period because they were on lockdown with the people who are their enemies, by their perpetrators. And even this year, when the schools were opened in January in Kenya, I know by my own knowledge that not every girl, and even boy, who was in school has gone back to school. And if you lose a huge constituency of girls who do not complete their education, they do not have even the basic primary level certificate, they do not have the secondary level certificate, then we're looking at a whole constituency of women and girls whose rights are violated and who might not achieve their social and economic goals as Kenyans living wherever they are. So when it comes to education, there are also some structural barriers that then inhibit these girls from going back to school. Yes, while the policies are there, that enables girls, even when you're pregnant, go back to school. But if
All right, I think we have lost Betty there, but as we try to fix that, back to you, Dorothy. We talk COVID-19, we talk other complications that our women continue to, struggle with down there. I mean, in your line of duty, we understand that there's so much that you actually do towards getting, the girls, first of all, access some of this medicine that we speak about. You get the girls access some of the rights that they would, require. You get the girls access, and get to understand, actually, are privy to the knowledge of what it is that has been incorporated in terms of programs by the government or with government or NGOs of getting them to just have a proper life, What has been done different at this point of COVID-19, and looking at the fact that we've seen very many girls, are not in school because when they got pregnant somewhere along the way, they are experiencing difficulties in terms of health and all that. What different has been done?
Well, I think, I really think that COVID-19 really sneaked up on us, and I don't think anybody anticipated that it was going to take this long or to be to the magnitude that it is right now. So I don't think there were measures that were put in place to deal with the effects of COVID-19. But I think I can specifically talk about what we did during this time. I remember in 2019, we held a teen summit that brought together about 500 girls from Narok County. And this is something we did in partnership with the county government. And so last year, what we decided to do is to actually go down into the field and find these girls that we talked to back in 2019, just to see how staying out of school had affected them and how, what kind of effect the Teen Summit had on them. And we actually documented this. What is interesting, and exactly what Betty said, is that education is such a fundamental thing that we really have to prioritize. So when we talked to some of these girls, of course, we found some of them had gotten pregnant, and they had already given birth to children. But what is important is that even after this happened, they understood the importance of getting an education and going back to school. And so it's very nice to see that these girls not only gave birth, they actually refused to get married to the people that impregnated them. Mm-hmm. And they're very committed to being in school. Some of them even want to be doctors. And there are others we talked to who even have some knowledge around contraceptives, by the way. And they were very categorical that they would not allow a boy or a man to, lay them away from their studies and the dreams they had for themselves. So I totally agree that we really need to integrate information. We need to integrate education. We need to empower our girls, boys, and women to be able to take care of themselves and to know what to do, even when they are faced with this kind of adversary and idleness. Because of course, with them being out of school, they are very idle. So it's very easy for them to get into these vices that get them pregnant and just change, the whole trajectory of their lives. So I think education is really one thing, and information sharing is one thing that we can really focus on, even as we continue dealing with the after effects of COVID-19.
Okay, well, as we celebrate this day, we acknowledge that indeed there are women who are succeeding. But then again, amid the success, there's so much struggle. What can we do to ease up or to make the ground friendlier for the women who are growing, the girls who are coming up, so that, historically they'd sit down and say the ones who are ahead of us really did something towards making it a favorable ground? Betty. Betty, did you hear me? We still are not able to hear Betty well. So back to you, Dorothy, and the question goes to you. Yes, we acknowledge the successes that we have, but we equally understand that they come along with a lot of struggles. How do we get off the struggles off the way? Because some of them are actually man-made, so to speak. Some of them are made by our very own selves. We keep talking of a scenario where girls, or women are their worst enemies and such.
Yes, I think, already we really do have structures in place that are geared towards providing opportunities for women. And I'll still go back and say that the lack of information on these opportunities is still a hindrance. I know we have different funding opportunities for women, women funds. We have a number of economic empowerment opportunities for women, but how many women, especially those that this kind of programs target, are even aware that this opportunity exists and how they can go about accessing funds or training to empower themselves and be economically viable? And so I still insist that we need to come up with frameworks that really integrate aspects of community education, community sensitization. We need to treat this information so that our women can access this information, can access these funds, can access this training, and can be able to really stand on their own 2 feet.
Right. Okay, on that note, let's try and fix Beatty's audio during this break, and then we come back with more.
You are watching TV 47, the home of untold stories. They say the way to the heart is through the stomach. This month of love, Throwdown shares with you those amazing food ideas for that candlelit dinner and picnic date. Learn those dining etiquette and avoid those embarrassing moments every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. What's the perfect way to kickstart your day in the morning? Well, apart from having a healthy breakfast, the morning cafe is all you need. We will inform you on what's happening on the roads, dive deeper. Agriculture being the engine of economic growth in Kenya. Richer Fields aims to educate, entertain, and take you round the world of rich fields when it comes to matters agriculture and agribusiness.
It's 800 shillings per kg.
Where?
Almost 100% profit.
They say the way to the heart is through the stomach. This month of love, Throwdown shares with you those amazing food ideas for that candlelit dinner and picnic date. Learn those dining etiquette and avoid those embarrassing moments every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. What's the perfect way to kickstart your day in the morning? Well, apart from TV 47, the home of untold stories.
Welcome back to the broadcast, still with me via Skype, Dorothy Okemore and Betty Adera, as we look at the progress that we've made as a people in regards to getting the women out there. But importantly, as we just focus on the theme of this year's Women's Day, that is women in leadership and equally achieving an equal future in COVID-19 world. And so this is what we'll be looking at. And so just to loop them in again, Betty, let's talk matters leadership. I mean, we do not even look at what has happened across Africa and across other parts of the world. It's been quite a hullabaloo right here in the country, and I'm sure you are right at the center of all this. What do you suppose will be done first to get us to that point where we'll acknowledge the importance of pushing the women out and, you know, to the top of the helm, getting them to the table without having to point fingers, without having to, you know, profile them, and, you know, without having to scare more women from actually getting these particular positions?
Thank you very much. And again, apologies for my internet challenges today.
Okay.
If I just tell a very quick story, just recently at our foundation office, I walked in because he thought the organization was being done well, they were feeling the impact in the community, and he wanted to come and just be part of it and thank the management for what it is that they were doing. But when he walked in, he met me. And as we were getting to know each other, he was asking to see the boss. Because in his mind, all this good work could only have been done by a man leading the organization. And shock on him when it dawned on him that it was actually me, a woman. And I had to calm him down because he just couldn't believe it. According to him, still in this day and age, women should be in the kitchen. Women cannot be heads of anything. Women can be in the office, yes, but she should be cooking the tea or cleaning the office or arranging the files and things like that. And the more I spoke with this man, the more I realized just how deeply rooted the gender stereotypes are, in our community around women and leadership. While I managed to speak to him and turn him into my #1 champion, he represents a huge constituency of grassroots men, where the families are, where the communities are. These are the men we are talking about. So there's a lot that still needs to be done for all of us today on a daily basis, constantly challenge, the existing stereotypes against women that put us at the back of the room and not in the front of the room. Secondly, we need to think through ways in which we can role model for women, and we can also provide mentorship. It is one thing to be a leader. It is another to be a great and transformative leader. So that takes time and that takes work. We also need to figure out ways in which we can build the social skills of women to aspire for leadership positions in all fields. Yeah. There are skills such as confidence, public speaking, great communication, people skills, and all the skills that are actually needed for any leader to thrive. And you find that women often don't have them. So we have to come out and figure out ways in which we can identify these women who want to aspire or who are already sitting in leadership positions and aspire, for growth and build their capacities in that level. Back to role modeling, I challenge myself and thousands of other women out there who are already occupying leadership positions to come back and look back and make time to mentor the others who are coming after you. Because that door was opened for you or you broke it open, it is open. So you need to keep it open, for other women to also come in and pass through the same. Linda?
All right. Okay, well, an interesting one there, but just how much space is given to the women? And speaking of which, we are looking at this theme that speaks of achieving an equal future in COVID-19 world. At this time of COVID-19, Dorothy, we speak of the basics and how much the women have been considered in the fight and equally, having their interests being met, especially acknowledging the fact that a majority of the women have been on, the frontline aspect. And, most of the key jobs that have been affected have had women, at the top or, at the cream of it all. And so, for instance, we've had a report that speaks of a scenario where, the national dedicated COVID-19 task force teams across about 87 countries. That includes the EU member states and all that. About 85.2% were led by men. And look, we are talking of, achieving an equal future in a COVID-19 world where all this task force, a majority are men. How are they able to speak of the interests of the women? How possible is it for us to have a fair ground when we're looking at this kind of balance?
I think the impetus is on us women who already are occupying those spaces where we are able to interface and sort of demand to be part of these spaces where such decisions are made, to actually take this a notch higher and make sure that we are sitting in some of these spaces. Because honestly, if we wait for anybody or men to hand some of these positions to us, I don't think it's going to happen. So I think it's upon us who are already in leadership, who are empowered, who are knowledgeable, and who even know what is happening, to propose ourselves and put ourselves in those spaces where we can be part and parcel of these committees or spaces where decisions are made. Mm-hmm. And when we get there, I think we also need to go down to the county level and empower other women, even those women that are running their community-based organizations or grassroots organizations, to also be able to be part of the county-led committees and forums where decisions around health and other aspects are made. Yeah. And this is something we particularly actively do. We normally build the capacity of community-based women-led organizations in the county level. And we make sure that any forum that we have that is inclusive of the policymakers, members of the county assembly, also has an equal representation of women grassroots organizations and women leaders. This is to make sure that even beyond that kind of engagement, these women, we already have opened doors for these women to continue engaging and interfacing with their leaders and making sure that whatever decisions are made are inclusive of their voices. And of course, this is also a constitutional right for public participation and for women particularly to be part and parcel of this, to engage, to be heard, and for their rights and their needs to be considered when decisions and policies and budgets are being put out there. So I think still the onus is on us women who are already in those spaces to hold the hands of other women and also fight for the right to be in these spaces without necessarily waiting for somebody to hand it out to us.
All right, these reports have been out here in the public domain. Closing our eyes, we can pinpoint the key things and the numerous challenges that girls have gone through and the women have gone through at this point of COVID-19. And still again on the theme, achieving an equal future in COVID-19 world. And that means gender equality must be at the heart of the post-pandemic recovery. How do we achieve that, one, as a country, before we even think of what plays out in the global fraternity? Betty?
Gender equality, as you say, sit at the center of everything. Everything women, everything girls. And gender equality, first and foremost, doesn't mean that now men are equal, women are equal to men. A man is a man, a woman is a woman. And we function just like that. But it's sort of like more like equality in terms of opportunity, equality in terms of access to resources, access to education opportunities, access to finance, just equality in the way something in his life the girl should also add. And one way is to get there actually is more of like we kind of need to challenge the voice and agency of women. We need to strengthen that so that women actually have the voice and the agency to sit on all these boardroom decision-making spaces at national, county, and even community level. Any place where decision is being made, women need to be empowered to do that, right from grassroots level all the way to to the top. Another way to achieve an equal world is again to level the playing ground. We need to work even harder as we reflect on this International Women's Day, on ways in which we can even level better, the playing field, especially for girls and for women. We have to address sexual and gender-based violence. We have to address issues of access to credit, access to financial literacy. We have to address positive male engagement. We have to address the issues around structural barriers that keeps girls out of school. There is no way an opportunity will come with a minimum requirement of secondary education certification. A girl who dropped out of school in class 6 will not be able to compete for those kinds of opportunities. So these are some of the things that we are saying that except we bring them up, we talk about them, we address them sustainably, then we may still be a journey ahead. We may still be a while before we get to where we want to get, but while we appreciate that a lot of effort and work has been done and is achieving positive impact, there's still a lot more that needs to be done. We need to constantly be challenging the stereotype around women, especially in political leadership, is key, because political leadership is what drives every other sector, in this country. If political leadership is good, then everything else around that country or community, is going to be good. And women need to be in these places where all these decisions are being made.
All right, that's good. Dorothy, then how do we cement some of these policies that we come up with, that are meant to protect the girl child? How do we get, them to be incorporated in law or to be, followed to the latter? Because most of the times we talk of great policies, but when it comes to the aspect of implementation, it becomes a problem. And then how do we even have the confidence that even as a country, we are able to achieve this when we look at the downfalls that we've witnessed, especially with the laws that have been incorporated in the Constitution, yet have not been implemented as of now?
Yeah, I think it takes a lot of commitment, but specifically the policy that I even want to talk about is the school re-entry guideline.
Yes.
The Ministry of Education just reviewed and adapted this, I think about a month ago. Mm-hmm. And I think these are very critical guidelines, especially when you're looking at the post-COVID era, where we have seen the statistics. There are so many girls that have gotten pregnant because they've been out of school, they've been idle, they've been home for so long. And so just making sure that this particular policy is implemented to the letter, that no girl is disenfranchised, no girl is made to feel inferior, and no girl is denied access to rejoin school even after they've given birth, I think is very, very, very important. And so I think even as this policy has been rolled out nationally, I really hope that there are mechanisms that have been put in place to make sure that this guideline is actually trickled down to the county level. It is domesticated to address the specific needs of these counties, and it goes further and is disseminated within the schools. Because I remember even last year when we went to Narok, most of the school heads had not heard of the return to school policy. And so what good is it if a policy is in place and the people that are supposed to implement it do not even know of its existence or what the provisions of it are? So I really would encourage the stakeholders and the people who are in charge of this to make sure that this time around the re-entry guidelines are fully followed, they are fully understood, and the school heads are able to really make sure that all girls go back to school and they're able to complete their education. And so I think the bigger picture is making sure that even as we develop policies, we are also looking at the implementation framework. We are able to track, we are able to monitor, we are able to take stock of how that policy is being implemented and what the bottlenecks are and what the mitigating factors are, to make sure that we are not just making policies for the sake of making them, but we actually have the intention to make sure that they are implemented and adapted and reviewed where necessary.
Before I come to Betty, this is something that is quite of a challenge, where there's always that feeling of imposter syndrome. In most cases, women do not have that belief that they deserve. Some of them doubt how valuable they are, how powerful and deserving they are. Out of all these policies that we speak about, out of all these things that we speak of in terms of the likes of education and all that, do you suppose they would come in handy to get the women, first of all, to develop that belief in themselves so that they can go out and be what it is that they would love to be? Dorothy?
Absolutely, absolutely correct. And one of the things we've been saying is that I'm sure you've heard of the youth-friendly corners and youth-friendly centers. I think what we are saying is that we need these spaces to be fully integrated so that they're not just places where young people can go and hang out, but they're spaces where women and girls can be empowered, they can be educated, they can develop life skills. We can have mentors talking to them and, making them confident in the fact that they are able and they can become anything they want to become, and that we can remove the gender stereotypes and the cultural beliefs that are deeply entrenched that make even girls themselves feel disenfranchised and not able to take up the spaces that are there. Mm-hmm. And so we all have a role to play in making sure that our girls know that they are worthy and they are able and they can become anything they want to become. Mm-hmm. And we need to be able to provide this information in the spaces that are really available within the community setting itself, including even schools. I don't think anything stops us from having school-based programs where we are able to talk and mentor these girls and make sure that from a young age they know that they can really achieve anything they put their mind to.
All right, incredible.
Yeah.
Betty, I know you are in a capacity to react to this, and I'd love for you to tell us what is your take on the BBI, especially, when we're talking about women right here, because then these are policies that we discussed that seek to create a favorable space for the women, for the girl in the country.
Thank you very much. Now, the BBI is one of the best things that are going to happen to women and girls in this country if it gets passed the referendum and actually implemented into law. BBI is for women. BBI is for the girl. Among other things, BBI makes provisions, especially for women in political leadership, expanded spaces for them, attempting to address the 2/3 gender rule with clear considerations of our context and what is actually doable. And we are seeing that efforts are being made to ensure parity, especially at the Senate, and also bringing the burden back to the political parties to ensure that their party lists or their list of contestants or aspirants, if you like, adheres to the 2/3 gender rule. So we want to see a situation where more women, if more women, aspire to vie and actually vie, the likelihood of more women to be elected into gubernatorial, into MCA positions, into member of parliament positions is actually much higher now than we have seen in the past in our country. Secondly, the BBI also is clear about matters to do with keeping girls in school, access to education, and ensuring that they are retained in school and they are transitioning, the right way from one level of education to another. It is actually going to engrave the provision of sanitary products to girls in school, so that becomes not at the whims of a leader to decide to do or not to do, but it becomes part of the education system. We are looking at, thirdly, we are looking at the proposed ward fund that would come up to the ward level under the guidance and leadership of the elected MCA of that particular ward. Look, who is in the ward? That is from the family level to community, we go to the ward. So if you're looking for women, they are in the wards. If you're looking for this grassroots mother, she is in the ward. So we're looking at a fund that is being brought as closest as possible to her, for her to be able to access credit, to access information, to access business or entrepreneurship training, to access mentorship, to access networking, to access all these things that our women at grassroots level actually need. So there's a lot of things in there, for women in this country. And also the proposed additional constituencies would mean what? If a constituency is being added, it means that there's an extra chance for a woman to vie for MP position in that particular newly created constituency. And I want to believe that the constituencies coming in, the wards are also being divided as well. The wards can't remain the same if constituencies are, being divided by way of.
All right, we got a hitch there anyway. As we come to a close, I think I'll allow Dorothy first to give us her parting shots, but importantly, a chance also to celebrate this women or this woman in our life that she would want to look at and, say that indeed you have done well and, you'd wish to have more that are like this particular woman.
Yeah, I think my parting shot is that I think we have made quite a number of strides in terms of inclusivity of women and providing equal opportunity. And of course, this has been done through different policies and frameworks. My parting shot is always that we need to find mechanisms in which we ensure these policies are implemented and we are able to track the progress and take stock of what has worked and what hasn't worked. Even as we talk about BBI and wait for it to be implemented, because it will be, I think it's important for us to also have a committee that looks at the implementation of BBI. Just take stock of what is working, what is not working, and readjust accordingly. You know, I don't think we need to sit with a policy that is not working when we've already established it's not working for the majority of the people that it was intended for. I think I would like to celebrate you, Linda, to be honest.
Thank you.
I think you Robert TV 47. I watch your shows all the time, and
Thank you.
You're a powerhouse, and you bring, you know, very good guests, and you're able to really ask the important and pertinent questions. Of course, I'd like to celebrate my mother, you know, because she made me what I am today, and she worked very hard to make sure that we are all able to access the opportunities that we are talking about today.
Right.
And of course, celebrate all women and girls out there who are working very hard every single day to make sure that their children and their family are able to live a happy and comfortable and fulfilled life.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. Thank you so much. That caught me by surprise, but I'm humbled. And I might say that I equally celebrate my guests. I think I started celebrating you even before you had tuned in, you know, or before you were on. And so, Betty, are we able to get Betty? Well, fortunately, we're not, unfortunately that is, we're not able to get a hold of her, but all the same, I'm sure we've gotten the key points. It's a conversation that goes on. It's not, you know, one that we limit to, you know, those moments when we celebrate the women, we celebrate the mothers. We keep saying that we'll have these conversations as much as it takes for us to get a level playing ground. And like Dorothy started by saying, it shouldn't be a scenario where it appears as though we are here on a battle, you know, against the men. It should be something that we work on together, and together we make it better as a people. Dorothy, asante sana. That's where we close it at. Thank you so much also, Betty Adera, for your time and for the great insights. I celebrate you. I celebrate every other woman out there, and I equally celebrate my mom and my sisters and every other person. We say asante sana in our own special and small ways. We have managed to make it a good place for us. And so in that case, it is worth celebrating as we make these baby steps. We certainly are going to be there. So we'll leave you with this message of inspiration. And of course, as we celebrate the women, as we say, Happy International Women's Day. My name is Linda Alela. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing as I get to see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye. Bye.
Life will be much easier when we finally understand which hands to shake and which ones to hold.